So let's go through this. For all the attention paid to Hollywood celebrities, blah, blah, blah. This is a very Matthew Ball point. Speaking about the context that, we all idolize, not idolize, but movie stars get all the attention. Okay, excellent. Thank you. It's going well. Movie stars get all the attention, music, like you can't go anywhere without hearing about Drake or Travis Scott or, it gets all the attention. But the fact is, movies and music are nothing compared to video games. Video games are huge, and they continue to take share of GDP because the technology enables new experiences. And that's kind of the point I was trying to get across this with this Barron's quote of all things. Probably should have just used a Matthew Ball quote. Although he has very long essays, so Barron's is able to get it much smaller, although not as good. Business Insider, Nintendo is the Disney of video games. This holds true today. If you think about the IP, now they don't own all of Pokemon, but Pokemon is a massive franchise. Then you have the standard stuff that everybody's familiar with, Zelda, blah, 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 Mario. It goes on and on and on. And what's so beautiful about IP is that it doesn't age, right? You don't have to pay Mario any more money. Nobody cares about the actual voice actor. And that'll all go digital in the future anyways. AI will be able to do these voices. So it's like a peak Tom Cruise or George Clooney, and then they just never age. You can kind of ride that for eternity. So I think it's a really cool dynamic. And I think you've seen a lot more stuff where they just come out with fake celebrities now that are digital only. And it's probably, run by some 60-year-old Russian guy, but like nobody cares. So here's the thesis summary. I have not gone through this. In over a year. Within 6 months, there was things that I was seeing that were wrong with it. And people called me out on it big time, and I was oblivious to it, ownership bias and stuff. It's funny how you still have ownership bias, even if you're aware of it being ownership bias. That's the kind of thing about bias, it's hard to remove. The market's view. Nintendo is a console maker subject to boom and bust conditions. Still very much considering where the stock's trading today. That's still very much the market's view. Our view, Nintendo is transitioning to a recurring revenue model and expanding its target market by 100-fold. That was dead right, I would say. That was, not on the expanding its target market by 100-fold. The recurring revenue model was ahead of the curve. I definitely got that point right. The target market had to do with mobile, and that's where I know I got this wrong. The console risk is fading. So far in this presentation, I'm flying. This is the point that has driven Nintendo stock to new highs. Obviously, the pandemic helps, but console launches were traditionally a major risk. This is ahead of its time. I give myself an A+ for this. Changes in technology and physical media resulted in a new round of consoles every 5 to 7 years. So essentially, every time you launch a new console, you were starting from scratch practically, and that is changing. And the iterative iPhone style cycle where everything's digital and you have a games library, that was right. I nailed that. I saw that coming and I got it. So the risk to me of what has traditionally been, for the past 30 years with the Nintendo, the console risk is fading. And whoa, what the hell is that? Okay, we're back in action. So that, we had this 10 years ago. The stock's actually where it was 10 years ago with the Wii. You have this beautiful growth, and then there's a new console, and it evaporates. And there's still skepticism on that, but I really think it's changing as the console's transition to digital libraries. You don't have the same risk of trying to attract developers because the built-in library, it's like the App Store and with the iPhone. Every time you get a new iPhone, your old apps work. So that risk is fading. And let me just say, having 2 years post and owning Match and owning Nintendo, the margin contribution as these Nintendo goes from a third party to first party in terms of the distribution, right? They used to have to sell through Best Buy, and they still do through console launches, but the actual digital storefronts it's pure profit. And as a Match shareholder, having to pay a 30% app tax is such a drain on that company. It reduces the operating leverage so much. And I didn't cover it enough in my presentation on Match because it's honestly a huge like drain on the economics of Match. Digital downloads reduces new console risk. Yep, we've gone through this. Gaming as a service. I'm gonna give myself a B on this. So my thought here was that Nintendo Online would just become like I'll see what I modeled, but in my head right now I was thinking like a double-digit ARPU over time that people will just pay to access all their old N64 games and GameCube and stuff. And Nintendo has been dreadfully slow on this. To be fair, they're not charging a lot of money for the service, but so much of the value of Nintendo is in its historical library, and that value accretes to essentially eBay at the moment and game resellers, when it would be so much easier if you could just pay $15 a month and have every Nintendo game ever. That's still a thing that will happen, but it might be a decade off. I have no idea. They still haven't even brought N64 games to the Virtual Console, which is their subscription service. So I'm going to give myself my B-. Let's do that. Freemium model, an economist's dream. I'm correct in what I'm saying here. The beauty of digital downloads and a freemium model is essentially, when back in the day I used to, I'd paid $50 for a Nintendo 64 game cartridge like Mario Kart. We still play that, like me and my friends in the summer at a cottage or something. And Nintendo sees none of that value. We just paid $50 20 years ago. So that, 25 years ago. And that essentially is something that's so beautiful about a freemium like Fortnite model, is if you're an extreme hardcore player where you're obsessed with a game, or FIFA, Grand Theft Auto, like Fortnite's the best because you can play for free, but you can also spend an insane amount of money in these things, Roblox, whatever. And that's true, but Nintendo really hasn't embraced it. And where they have embraced it would be in mobile, and it was a bit of a nightmare. And the mobile will be the worst part of this review for me. It's a game changer, sure, but look, here's my mistake. I'm quoting EA, which is huge into a freemium model to some degree. Well, they're charging for the game, but you can charge for extras on top. But Nintendo has not embraced this at all. Nintendo in the first innings of game. Yeah, this is my thing about their Virtual Console, like their Netflix style delivery of their games. I think the price is still the same. I think it's still $20 a year, and that's because they're not adding very many new games to it, so they really can't charge much. And to be fair, just their overall online experience is horrible. It lags. It's from like 10 years ago. I really think they should, partner with Microsoft and let Xbox handle, or Sony, whatever, just somebody else that has the infrastructure. Nintendo's terrible online. Yeah, so this is me talking about beautiful pie in the sky TAM stuff that has yet to occur. So I'm gonna give myself a C because very little has happened on this. Changing culture. Yes. Okay, Nintendo's culture is improving. I think they issued a special dividend last night. Not that I get value from dividends, but just the fact that they're even considering that has value. It is changing, but it is so slow. Like, this is like a 10-year process to even show any material change to its culture. The Nintendo movie is still supposed to be coming, so hopefully it's made by the DreamWorks SKG Minions Despicable Me team, so hopefully that is quite good. So that's to be determined, but a B or C on this. It's a B. It's occurring, but slower than I would have hoped. This is me trying to look for like a pivot point on the culture. It's true, but it's a very slow pivot. Trying to create a narrative on the stock to make the presentation a bit more interesting. You see what you want to see in these things, I suppose. The Switch, I'm going to give myself an A for this. I totally nailed how incredible a console that was. And yeah, okay, the pandemic, sure, it's helped sales, but the sales would have been fine even without the pandemic. This is a good console. It'll be their number one selling console of all time. It just took over the DS on this quarter. Okay, here's where this one goes wrong. Smartphones. We all have a Game Boy in our pockets. That sounds a bit strange. Am I right on the smartphone opportunity? Yes, 100%. I totally got that correct. Nintendo has seen the light. Have they started doing more mobile stuff? Okay, sure. Nintendo, like Mario Kart came out. We'll get into that in a second. This is me trying to justify why they've been slow on their mobile efforts. It's okay. It's only been since 2017. It's only been a couple years. I really personally, I really thought they would have just developed it internally. Like, they've already been doing Game Boy, but I guess mobile development is very different than a Game Boy. But this reminds me of like Disney not doing video games. You're storytellers. Adapt to the medium. I really think they should be doing their own first-party mobile development, but I've given up on that. Pokemon Go, yeah, that really wasn't Nintendo too much. It was Niantic, but at least they're willing to license their IP that way. Earnings have not seen the smartphone upside yet. That's true, and it's also true that in 2021 they still haven't. I really got the smartphone thesis wrong. Yeah. This is total. They had one big hit, Fire Emblem. They had average revenue per user of $30. That's incredible, but they've not done that with any other of their games. This is an F. This is a F. I knew it when the game came out. I knew I was so angry when I saw this game come out. It was so busy. It was like confusing. It defaulted to drifting when there should have been something really simple, and drifting was an option. It was a horrible mistake. It still, had crazy downloads, but that's because of their IP. But man, I was angry when this came out. I wanted to throw my phone against the wall. This is an F. They screwed this up so royally. It was really frustrating to see. It was a not enjoyable experience to even play. I'm still angry about this. I really thought this was going to be a game changer, and I guess that's why you don't put all your eggs in one basket. But that was a huge part of the thesis. Nostalgia. This is well known. Any Nintendo investor will push this angle on the stock. It has built-in audiences, and the kids that are playing it now are going to grow up and have kids, and their kids will play it. This was essentially your floor on Nintendo, right? Other than the fact that like a quarter of the market cap's in cash, you have this IP library, which is the floor, which is worth billions of dollars, let alone the operational, excellence of the team. So this is going to be all terrible financials. Trading at half the multiple of the peer group, that would be true today. Nintendo's price has gone up, if you look at the stock here, but I did this back in February 19, so it was around $33 or $34, $35. So it's more than doubled. So like that's great, but we'll summarize this at the end. But even today, with the stock going up, all those peer groups have gone up as well, and Nintendo's making a lot more money than it did 2 years ago. So it is trading at a very low multiple relative to the peers. This is going to be wrong. $13 a share in gaming as a service. You need to look at my ARPU here, revenue per sub. There's no way these numbers are even close to being on track. It's not right. It's still there as an option, but it's not being executed upon. You'd have to reduce that. Smartphone upside, you'd have to reduce that. But the general console business has been more than enough to make up for this. So yeah, it was trading at a reasonable multiple then. It's trading at a reasonable multiple now. The risk was poor execution. That turned out to be correct. A lot of things were done terribly. But the console side has been good. Now, obviously, we're into a new console generation, and Nintendo will come out with a revision. The risk you have as a Nintendo shareholder now is them doing something stupid and gimmicky. What you need to do is just upgrade the Switch. It's working, everything's fine. If it's a 4K version, whatever, thin the bezels, whatever, just make it a better Switch, more powerful. That's all they need to do. If they try to do some weird VR thing, get concerned because it'll probably fail. At the time this came out, when I did this presentation, I had been maybe a couple months before to a video game conference in Toronto. There's a gaming expo that I lived really close to, and I went and I was talking to a bunch of people, and I was talking to some parents, and they're like, there was certainly a lot of buzz at the Nintendo booth, but there was just a whole, field of computers with really young kids playing Fortnite. And I was asking some of the parents, I'm like, are they just obsessed with Fortnite? And they're just like, that's all they do. That's just Fortnite. And I'm like, that's a concern, right? But I did feel that, I didn't think Fortnite was going to be the metaverse. I thought there'd be other interest in Nintendo and, other companies. And that was true. But Fortnite's still obviously a massive force, but it did not, kill Nintendo or anything. No controlling shareholder acquisition. I don't know about acquisition. That's a bit of a reach by me. I think it's highly unlikely that Nintendo would involuntarily be acquired. I think you'd have to have some strong government support. Yeah, I don't know the actual mechanics behind it, but it didn't work. What it was nice is Third Point went in. Or was it Value Act or Third Point? Oh my God, I can't even remember. Value Act, I think. Maybe it's both, but you do have people agitating for the obvious low-hanging fruit in terms of execution with this company, so that's good. And yeah, this is talking about the IP. This is the thing you're always going to be most secure on with Nintendo, is the IP is gold. It's fantastic. That's a really interesting chart to me. The WWE, I don't know. Like, the fact is, I find WWE interesting, and it is a situation where it's just not the same level of profits that Nintendo has. It doesn't monetize as well. I do think WWE is really interesting. Listen, we have a position in it, but it's very similar actually to Nintendo in the sense that there's management problems, and maybe I'll do a slide deck on WWE one day. It's interesting. It's the way I look at WWE is it's $4 billion and you own an entire sport. Like, where, buying one NBA team is over $1 billion, right? And you get the entire sport. You get the top league, you get the mid leagues, you have the library, you have the franchises. Like, they own the rights to the wrestlers' IP. Like, it's incredibly lucrative. There's no off season. There should be, though, just from an ethical perspective. There should be an off season in wrestling. There's some serious problems on that side of the business that needs to be fixed. Okay, wow, this is a lot longer than I thought. Is anybody still watching this? 10 people. Thank you. If there's any comments, I'll read them after. And conclusion: the market continues to value Nintendo as a console maker, subject to high degree. That's true today. The advent of digital downloads has increased. That's true. Wii U disaster, less likely. True. Gaming as a service, I've been not right on that, but it's still there. They still have that opportunity to make a Netflix of Nintendo games, and people would pay a lot of money for that. And it would be useful. Like, I have a bunch of consoles in my closet that are just, gathering dust, but if I could actually just play it quickly, that would make sense. Culture, yeah, it's improving, but slow. And the low valuation, it would be true today. I might do another earnings stream just on the updated financials for Nintendo. Obviously, these are very potentially some peak earnings for a little bit, but it's probably worth another look at the financials to see where the stock is today. But I still think if you believed in Nintendo 2 years ago, you believe in it today. So yeah, good run on the stock. It's only been a couple years. The thesis will take a while, somewhere around here. I can't remember. And it's reasonable. We'll see. So overall, I'll give my presentation a B minus. I got the most important stuff right, but the positives that I saw have not come yet. They could in the future, but the stuff that I was certain of, the Switch and the Wii U risk and the transition to digital, in terms of the margins, that was correct. So if I could do that well in all of my thesis, presentations, then we'll be okay. Let's see if there's any questions. Spoke to my nephews yesterday, both frustrated, not enough Yukon for the Switch, desperate for PS5 games. There has not been a lot of Switch games recently. If you look at what's selling really well, Animal Crossing sold really well, but it's certainly lacking some big things. But this just kind of happens with Nintendo. I think that you'll see some stuff in the new year come out. They just thankfully have this beautiful catalog. But yeah, I do think that their content's been slow. So anyways, this has gone on way too long. But thanks very much for tuning in. And if you like it, just let me know, and I'll try to do some more of these. The software is a lot easier to use. So, all right, stay safe.